So I'm sitting here today talking with Beth Major, the Director of Communications for the US Golf Association. Beth, thanks so much for joining us here on the Disability Media Network.
Oh, Jennifer, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about all things adaptive golf and especially the Open that was just last week. So if we can just get started by you telling me, how did this idea even come about in the first place?
You know, the USGA has actually been active in this space for many, many years. You know, as early as the 1990s, the USGA had a foundation that was then based in Colorado Springs that was, you know, over about a 12-year period, allocated some $65 million to programs, grassroots programs around the country, many of which were focused in the junior space, the caddy space, and construction projects for various programs. But we were also very focused on programs for golfers with disabilities. It was a space that not many throughout the industry were focused on, and we saw a real need and an opportunity to provide some support there. So for many years, you know, we had that opportunity. That continues through a partnership we have now with the National Alliance for Accessible Golf. In the late 1990s, we also realized, due to the work that we were doing in the community, that there was a need to look at the rules of golf. You know, the rules of golf are how all golfers play the game. But when you think about golfers with disabilities, they obviously have some unique circumstances that would not necessarily apply to a golfer without a disability. So if you think about something like being in a bunker or access, you know, what we did in 1999 was created the modification of the rules of golf for golfers with disabilities. So you know, an ongoing journey in terms of, you know, making sure that we are being representative of all golfers, including those with disabilities. So in the mid 2010s, 2015, 2016, we really started to look at how we might provide other avenues of support for the community. And, you know, obviously the thing that the USGA is most known for is running national championships. We run 14 of them, the US Open, most notably the Women's Open, the US Amateur, et cetera. But there was a conversation that had started coming out of golf being added to the Olympic Games in 2016. You know, golf had not been in the Olympics since, I think, 1904. So having golf added back to the Olympic slate in 2016 gave everyone a lot of momentum and energy around what other opportunities might exist. And from our perspective, we thought there were two. You know, certainly we are very keen to see golf be added to the slate of Paralympic sports. And in order to do that, we realized that in the US, we needed to play a leading role in terms of bringing a structure of competition to golfers with disabilities. So in 2016, we started to talk about it. In 2017, we actually announced at our annual meeting that we would create a national championship for golfers with disabilities. Our then president made that announcement at our annual meeting. And it was really, you know, it was creating an opportunity for golfers with disabilities to showcase their talents, just like those, again, in the US Open, US Amateur, you know, various gender, age, talent level. Throughout every step in a golfer's journey, they have an opportunity to compete with the USGA. And we wanted to make sure that golfers with disabilities had that same opportunity.
Wow, so this has really been a journey that has gone all the way back to the 90s by modifying the rules first.
That's right. You know, it very much so. And the journey of this championship in particular was a bit of a long and winding road as well. You know, as I mentioned, we announced our intention to create the championship in 2017, and we then started the work of, you know, determining what a field would look like, what, you know, identifying courses that we could actually compete or have this competition be competed at. And then, you know, we were getting very close to making some announcements related to the championship. And then the pandemic hit, and like so many things, you know, we needed to take a little bit of a pause. You know, in 2020, we canceled all but 4 of our championships. We sort of, you know, that journey took us in a few different directions. So last year, Mike Wan joined us as our new CEO. And, Mike is from the golf world. He was the commissioner at the LPGA for more than a decade, and he was certainly familiar with a lot of the things that the USGA has under its purview. But I don't think this championship and our desire and intention to create it was on his radar exactly when he started. So when he came in, we quickly brought him up to speed that this is something that we've been talking about for a number of years. We really are anxious to get started. We think that we might have everything in place that we can make an announcement in the next few months and hopefully conduct the first championship in 2023. And Mike heard all of that, and he looked and he said, I think we should start this in 2022. So, it obviously an expedited time frame, but I think that speaks to certainly his excitement around this and what he saw as a great opportunity to do something that we had admittedly been talking about for a little while, but to be able to bring this opportunity to the community and to, as quickly as possible, provide that opportunity to showcase their talents on a national stage was something that he was obviously super excited about. And something that we obviously were thrilled to be able to bring to life even sooner. When you've talked about something for 5 years, to be able to finally get those wheels in motion and finally be able to make it, to see it come to life was super exciting, if not admittedly a little bit chaotic over the last year.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So what were some of the logistics that had to occur? You mentioned even determining the field or the course this year was at Pinehurst number 6. Was there something in particular about that course, or were there changes that needed to be made for, in order to pull the adaptive open off?
Pinehurst is just an incredible golf community overall. And it's a great partner to the USGA. They're one of our anchor sites, meaning we bring a lot of events there. We have a very good relationship with Pinehurst, and so much so that when we went to Pinehurst and said, hey, we have this new championship, we really would like to find a home. Do you think any of your courses would be able to accommodate it? And we laid out some of the specifics around the course setup, logistics just around the championship. Pinehurst has a major international airport about an hour away in Raleigh, and the Pinehurst Resort is very ADA accommodating because of the number of visitors, golfers, tourists, et cetera, that they bring in 12 months out of the year, whether there's a large championship there or not. And from a golf course perspective, to be able to have, Pinehurst by and large is a relative, the terrain isn't typically overly hilly. It's a little bit more easy to traverse. It's, whether it is, bunkers or water hazards or the length of a carry off of a tee, it was very accommodating. And it also provided us the opportunity to accommodate 8 different classifications of golfer, 8 classifications of impairment. And within that, we put 4 different teeing grounds at every hole, so that, the longer hitters all the way to, regardless of what your golf ability, your impairment, your golf handicap and talent level, there was a tee that you could comfortably play from. And the logistics and terrain of Pinehurst number 6 just made it incredibly easy to do so.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
And you had almost 100 players, I believe 96 total golfers there. How were they selected? Did they have to try out, or were they sort of hand selected based on prior experiences in tournaments?
So they didn't have to try out, and that's an interesting notion and conversation. For the USGA National Championships, we like to consider ourselves the most democratic championships in all of golf. All of our championships feature a robust qualifying system. So, invariably at the US Open, you will have, and I'll just take someone I know, there's a firefighter who is from the suburban Boston area. He basically is a Boston firefighter who, when he's not working out of the firehouse, golf is his passion, and he has qualified for the US Open. He's won one of our mid-amateur championships for golfers 25 and older. And ultimately, what we really want to be able to do with the US Adaptive Open is provide that exact same framework whereby people will have an opportunity to earn a place through qualifying. So, they might go to their local facility and qualifier, and, they'll compete against how many other people, and they'll be able to earn a spot. For the first year, we just didn't have that infrastructure in place. We rely on a lot of different organizations around the country. We call them allied golf associations to help run all of that qualifying. And we were in such a learning point in this journey that we felt like we really needed to make sure that we knew what we were doing and that we had the right structure in place before we leaned on any of our partners in the Allied Golf Association community to help run the qualifiers. So for the first year, we actually had 299 golfers who entered the championship, and we had identified 96 as the right number, just in terms of making sure that we were able to fit in play every day. That there's a bit of science around how we determine how many players can compete in each of our championship fields based on how long we think it will take them to play, number of hours of daylight that are available, et cetera, et cetera. So we felt 96 was the right number. And we then went through the process of how do we build that field? We wanted to make sure that there was equal representation from all 8 classification categories. And we wanted to ensure that we also had some spots set aside that we basically, you could call it a special exemption, a committee selection, but we wanted to make sure that we were able to sort of supplement all of that representation with others who might seem worthy of being in the field. So it was really, and then we based it all off of world rankings for golfers with disabilities and the GIN, it's the Golfers Handicap Index Network, which is the players on a regular basis enter their scores into the system, and it mathematically computes what their GIN number is. So really we selected the majority of those 96 players within their classification based on what their GIN number was. The lower the score, the better the chance that you had of earning a spot in that first field.
Very cool. And when you mentioned the classifications, were, some of them could be like a seated golfer or a golfer with an impairment and a leg impairment or whatnot. How did you come up with the classifications? Are they just sort of the most common ones amongst golfers or people in general, or how did you come up with them?
It's a great question, Jennifer. So what we really did was we worked very closely with the USOPC, the US Olympic Paralympic Committee, and then other organizers, really layering all the way up to the IPC and the IGF, which is the International Golf Federation, based on our desire to have golf be added as a Paralympic sport. We wanted to make sure that everything that we were doing around the US Adaptive Open aligned with what they set out in terms of guidelines. So, those 8 classifications are the 8 classifications that the IPC and the USOPC use for all of their games. And so it just made sense, but it also, from our perspective, allowed us to welcome the widest breadth of representation from the community across physical, intellectual, and sensory impairments. So, we as you said, we had amputee, we had some seated players, we had multiple amputee, we had a few blind golfers, which is really, for all of the inspirational moments and aspects of the championship, to watch blind golfers with their partner and coach line up their shots and be, I marvel at the fact that they're able to make contact, the fact that they're able to make such incredibly sharp contact, and that better golfers than me by and far and large. So and then we had representatives from the autistic community and from the Downs community. So to be able to bring that breadth of player together, and to see them engage with each other and interact with each other, it was just so incredibly powerful. I think one of the things that we tried not to lose ourselves in purely the inspirational aspect of it, because it's so incredibly powerful. But at the end of the day, these are all incredibly talented golfers who are competing for a national championship. So, to bring that community together, to have that representation from across the entire community was very intentional and very much aligned with what we see as being an important part of the journey to have golf be added to the Paralympics. But it also, whether it's that inspirational aspect or the pure competitive aspect, just all of it combined to make for that incredible week.
Yeah, I know. I got a chance to talk with a golfer who played and has Stargardt's disease, and we got into a brief discussion about the level of trust he needs to have with his caddy to be able to hit the ball, and then how much of the emotions his caddy internalizes also, whenever he's missed a shot or hasn't hit it as far as he wanted to or whatever. It's really impressive, just the relationship that a blind golfer or even a golfer with low vision will have with his caddy in order to help develop and improve upon his skill set, for sure. Yeah.
It's a great observation, Jennifer. I don't think people necessarily understand how significant that is. The player caddy dynamic is always interesting, whether it is Tiger Woods and his caddy or any, me and my dad, it's always an interesting relationship, and particularly at a competitive level where there's so much pressure on the player to perform. When you think about a situation like that, whereby the pressure is actually really extended to the caddy, because the caddy is now, is responsible for relaying a lot of what the player would normally be responsible for, whether it is, the player can't simply react to how a shot, how a shot has landed or how successful the shot was, because they're not able to watch the outcome of the shot. So it really does place an additional emphasis on the role the caddy takes on at a championship like this.
Yeah, I totally agree, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned lessons. So what were some of the lessons that were learned this year that, and maybe do you know of any changes you can think of that might be made for next year? Because you have mentioned that there will be one next year, which is great to hear.
Yeah, so we actually, Pinehurst is such a great partner to us that they not only eagerly signed up for the first one, but they signed up for the first two. So we'll be at Pinehurst number 6 next year, which for everyone at the USGA, that is not something. I've been at the USGA for more than 20 years, and I don't think we've ever had a circumstance in which we've gone to the same course in consecutive years. So to be, there were several times that we sat there during the championship a few weeks ago and thought, well, gosh, we'll be sitting right here next year again. And we'll put this right here and we'll do this right here. So, operationally and logistically, I think we feel really great about a lot of what was done this year. And over the coming weeks, we'll sit down and start a debrief around everything that happened and are there opportunities to improve. From a course perspective and a conduct of the championship perspective, that's, I think, likely we will see some changes next year. Premature to see what those could actually look like, because that's a lengthy process. But whether it is the size of the field and do we see an opportunity to add more players, is next year the time that we start to think about having qualifying become a part of it? Probably a little bit early, but a conversation that we'll have. We'll gather feedback from all of the players who competed to get their thoughts in terms of, what worked very well, what do they think could be improved, what did they like, what did they not like, what are things that we didn't think of that we should add or that we did that they don't feel are so necessary. So that's just a long process that we go through for all of our championships, because player experience is very, very important to us. We appreciate that the players, they earn the right to play in the national championship, and for many of them, that's the highlight. That's what they're there. That's their golf goal, is to be able to compete in a national championship. But we don't want to take for granted the position that affords them. We want to make sure that we are always improving, and that we don't want to rest on our laurels and say, well, you made it and you should be happy you got to a national championship. We want to make sure that if there are things that we can be doing better, that we are addressing them, so that, again, whether someone comes and plays in the US Adaptive Open next year as well, whether it's their second time or first time. We want to make sure that it is the best experience that any of those players will ever have. So again, just a lengthy process that we have just started to undertake.
Well, speaking of player feedback, I'm going to read two quotes, and I'd like to hear just your immediate first thoughts. What a gift this week has been, and I've never played with anyone else who looks like me.
Yeah, boy. That's I think, I've been fortunate to have been involved in the community of golfers with disabilities for probably close to a decade. I was actually out of communications for 5 or 6 years. I oversaw our community outreach efforts. So I worked very closely through the Alliance. I was a board member on the National Alliance for Accessible Golf for 5 or 6 years. I went to many events. And going into this week, we had lofty expectations. I think we go into every championship wanting it to be perfect and wanting it to be an incredible experience. But this one in particular, I think we were very respectful of the fact that this community has been running golf events. Some of the organizers in this community have been running events for 70 years, and they've been doing it very well. So in some ways, we're sort of the new kid on the block. And I think within that, despite the fact that we're the USGA, despite the fact that we run national championships year in and year out, we were very sensitive to, leading up to championship week, making sure that we had brought the players and the organizers along for the journey with us. We had, whenever we had a significant number of details to share, we would schedule a call, and we would have all of those organizers and many of the players join us. And, here's an update, here's what we're thinking, what do you think? Allow for that engagement with the USGA so that they felt a part of it. So by the time we got to the players actually starting to arrive at the championship a few weeks ago, our anticipation was like off the charts, because we, for many of the people on our team, they had never met many of the athletes. They had never seen many of the athletes actually compete. So there was that sense of a sort of anticipation and curiosity, and a little bit of, probably some awe in terms of what is this just going to be like? And I think we really felt it. We traditionally at most of our events, not the US Open and Women's Open, but at all of our amateur events and some of our matches, we always have a players' dinner, a players' reception that sometimes is the night before play starts, sometimes 2 nights before, but it's just a tradition. And they're fun, and it's a nice opportunity to let a defending champ say a few words, or let the club speak and whatnot. But it's a big dinner. It's typically 200 to 300 people, and the speeches can get a little blah blah blah. So at the players' reception at the Adaptive Open, I think there were a little over 200 people there, players, officials, all of the USGA staff was there, and I was struck. And I emceed the event, so I certainly was paying attention, but I was struck by the fact that every time someone spoke, whether it was me just making some introductory comments, our chief championships officer, John Bodenhammer, offering, just some background, gratitude, really making sure that the players felt involved, engaged, welcome, wanted. Every single head in that players' reception was just every word that everyone said. They were so in tune and so engaged. And I think it really, for all of us, it made us just feel so wonderful that it to see how much it clearly meant to every single player to, and one of them said, and if you haven't seen it, I'll share with you, we put out a video last Friday, I think, just sort of we felt like it had been such an amazing week, and we crowned the champions, and we had all this wonderful coverage of it, but we also felt like we wanted to sort of summarize the week, and share our emotion around it, and using the players to tell that story. And within that video, one of the players, his name is Tracy Rahman, he's a lower leg amputee who I've known for many, many years. And I asked him to come and speak at the player reception. I thought it would be great to have his voice represent the community. And in the video, you'll see he's giving a toast and he lifts his glass and he says, "We finally have our major." And, you know, for us to hear that, to see the players' reaction and engagement, to hear their gratitude, but to really throughout the week see their joy, I don't know that I've ever been at a championship where I have been more joyful. You know, just, you know, there's a difference when you are engaging with people who are so happy to be there and so excited by an opportunity, not only for them to be able to compete, which again is an incredible, important part of all of this, but also realizing that they had a stage by which they could potentially significantly impact someone's life. And I will say, we have received a number of outreaches over the last few weeks of, hey, watch the US Adaptive Open on Golf Channel. Never even would have, you know, I have a son, a nephew, a grandfather who is in one way or another has a disability, would never have even thought that this would be a possibility for them. Where can I learn more? And the players who competed that week, over and over again, you heard them talk about the opportunity they had to inspire someone else. And I think, you know, it's been so fun over the past few weeks. You know, now I follow 50 more people on social media than I did a month ago. And to see them continuing to talk about it and to talk about the, you know, the conversations that they've had since coming back from that championship have been absolutely incredible and very much something that we were hoping would be. Oh, sorry. You can certainly tell when my mailman comes. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
They should be good now. You know, that is something that we really had hoped would be an outcome of this championship. You know, because that's what we try to do through, you know, we talk about the USGA as unifying, showcasing, governing, and advancing the game. And, you know, the opportunity we have to showcase golfers at all levels, at all stages, through our national championships is such a key part of helping to unify the game and helping to advance the game. So to see that happen so quickly and so, you know, passionately at the Adaptive Open was really exactly what we were hoping to achieve. And know that, you know, again, going into year one, knowing that we still had some things to learn and not quite being sure of what it would all look like and how it would come to life, seeing how it did just gives us so much momentum and so much excitement moving forward.
Well, I'll certainly say this was definitely unifying, and I can't think of a better way to unify and advance the game than by having this Adaptive Open, which really just provides more access and more representation, and it will advance even the players, because now they'll just be one step further to, you know, being in the Paralympics once adaptive golf becomes a part of the Paralympics. So this interview has been incredible. I appreciate your time, Beth.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for putting on the Adaptive Open for sure. And hopefully I will see you next year.
I will look forward to it. Yeah. And thank you. You know, thank you for the kind words and for spending some time with me today. It's something that obviously we're also incredibly passionate about. And truly, you know, everyone at the USGA is fond of saying golf is a game for a lifetime, and golf is a game for a lifetime for everyone. So, you know, to be able to unify and advance the game in this way is just so incredibly important to us. And this is a big step in that direction. And again, we look forward to many steps in this journey to come. So, and we welcome you along for the ride at some point.
Oh, thank you so much. So